My name is Rodolphe Nicolle. I'm the Executive Director of Buildings 2030. We had a wonderful event and launch this morning for these studies I'm going to talk about. So I know that some of you attended and some others did not. So I'm really glad for the invitation. Thank you, Niels, and the eceee organization for that. We are a non-profit platform, technology neutral, funded by ECF, the European Climate Foundation, a couple of years ago. Our idea is definitely to make the quantification and monetization of the multiple benefits of energy efficiency. In other words, develop a more human-centric approach for buildings, which is sometimes a bit stupid to say it, but if you look at all the debate or the information that we can hear about, it's obviously very often energy-centric, and sometimes completely forgot the fact that there are also people living into this building, working into these places, and moving into those transport. So we started a year ago by developing with BPAE a white paper dedicated on those topics, so you can upload that on our website. I won't go into the details, but you can find the standards, the different certifications, and also the front runners dedicated to health, well-being, and productivity into buildings. But, well, the current renovation rate is not really on track. We all know that, I think. There is probably a reason. And we think that the main reason is also because people do not buy energy efficiency. It's too much technical. We are talking to converted people most of the time, and it's very difficult to communicate with at the end of the day. So we think, and we have a large number of studies dedicated to that, that people are motivated by comfort, health, and other considerations, of course, related to money. And you know this background regarding buildings in general. The most important part, I think, here is to say that if we talk about healthy buildings, in other words, what is the magnitude of the impact of building on health, well-being, and productivity on people, there is no real champion here in Europe at the level of the policymakers, and not even at the level of the member states so far. So this is what we try to challenge. Because in the US, for instance, they are able to provide that kind of quantification, which is definitely helpful to convince people to invest into that, to spend more research, more time, and to develop the appropriate messaging as well. And we can see that it works pretty well at the town and municipalities and state level for the moment. They got a couple of very good projects in place, and programs, sorry, which are really working pretty well. And it's interesting to see that the work done by the cog function study in Harvard and the Joseph Allen team are able now to give some figures regarding on the right, you can find some the impact of green building, what they can prevent in terms of respiratory symptoms, lost days of work, lost days of schools, and so on and so on. I don't want to go into the details regarding the figures, but it's about the narrative, how to convince people that energy efficiency will have an impact on their life, on us, on their children, and so on. So the second step of then Building 2030 has been to develop a new study jointly with BPAE, and thanks to the support of the sponsors that you can find on the bottom. The idea was to discovering the impact of better buildings, and we focused on schools, hospitals, and offices, because as you know, we are spending 90% of our time indoor. It's roughly 20 hours a day indoor. So who did spend 4 hours outdoor yesterday? Raise your hand. Okay, 2 persons, we are 70. Okay, so I like the 90% of our time into an indoor environment, but when we turn that very clearly, we are probably far away to have a clear understanding of what it means. And then we have the exposure. Okay, I worked for the chemical industry in the past, and you know you are able to design what is the hazard, and by the exposure, and then you have the risk. Okay, and we know about the hazard. The exposure, it's okay, roughly 90%, perhaps more, especially in Europe. I'm in great connection with the EIA and with WHO as well. We have wonderful connection with that on the multiple benefits, and EIA has been among the front runners on the multiple benefits of energy efficiency for years. We have been invited to several workshops there. But I could say sometimes we miss some European information focusing on indoor air quality. You know, this is what is happening here in Europe. Okay, Sometimes I heard from WHO, clean cooking, eating with cold. It's still happening in Europe for sure, and we have to solve that as well. But we have another kind of topic here to deal with, and it's sometimes underestimated. So you can, of course, upload the three documents that we have on our website on buildings2030.com and on bpa.com or .eu, I don't remember, .eu, sorry. So I won't go into the details, but just about the 90% of our time into indoor environment. 90 million of our students spend their days into educational buildings, okay, from kindergarten to university. 80 million are working in office in Europe, okay, again, into indoor. And 90 million of patients spend on average 7.6 days in hospitals. Okay, we have that kind of figures. Again, exposure time. We have the parameters and the approach on the bottom. I don't want to spend too much time on that, but on the findings, and once again, several participants this morning said, very interesting study, because for the very first time, we have a quantification and monetization very clear. And we can be agree or not agreed on. We can contest the methodology, we can say a lot of things about that, but at least we have a starting point on which we can discuss. I know that BPAE went through more than 400 different studies, selected 73 of them with a robust scientific background and so on to deliver those figures. So the first time I saw those figures, I say, well, it's huge numbers. It's huge numbers. No one will believe that. And finally, I double-checked that. We double-checked with other research centers and so on. They are reaching the same kind of figures. So my main message is today, if we have only one to say, it's we need a consolidation. I think we have enough research, except for some niche, but we need a consolidation, definitely. A methodology, perhaps, to be sure that, for instance, into our modeling, the one used for the energy policy design, for instance, primes, gains, and others. I don't have a fancy graph like my two predecessors, but we can definitely be sure that the social impact will be properly integrated. Because for the moment, they are not. It's very basic to say that, but that's the truth. Okay, for the moment, they are not. I don't know if you're shocked by that or not, but in 2018, this is the situation. And not because they don't want to. I know they work hard on it. It's a quite difficult stuff to achieve. But we need to make some progress on that, definitely. You will find, and I think I'm out of time, I need one more minute. You will find some recommendation for policymakers, but I don't want to go through. I wanted to have a slide like this full of words. You can't read it from the back, so there is no interest. But the idea is definitely to say, if we have to change the narrative to achieve our climate goal, it's definitely through this, by bringing to people what it means in terms of impact on health, well-being, and productivity. That means working on different typology of buildings and different typology of vulnerable populations. This is a team with Christina in the back, and we are more than happy to be in contact with you if you want to develop that. That was a very quick and dirty presentation. Sorry about that, but I'm very glad to be here with you.